Good evening, everybody, and welcome again to the Borderline Podcast with me, your host, Andrew Willix. Guys, I've got another great guest lined up for you tonight, but before I go into that, I just want to say a massive thank you to all my listeners. We got over 1,000 plays on Spotify at the weekend. My heart is very, very, very full. I never actually thought it would take off this quickly and been such a success. So that's down to you, the listener, and just love every single person that's contributed to this far. Which, of course, my guest tonight is going to add a further contribution with another amazing story, I'm sure. Milque Collin. Welcome to the Borderline Podcast. How are you?
Hi, Andrew. Thank you so much for having me here, and congratulations.
Oh, thank you very much.
1,000 listens.
Yeah, 1,000 people have heard this dumb voice thrown. As long as it's not as deep like we've just found out. Obviously, I know you. My wife knows you. A lot of people around IMO will know you, but for any listeners maybe on the outside that don't know you, could you just tell us a little bit about yourself and obviously what's made you come onto the Borderline Podcast today?
So my full name's Milque, but everybody knows me as Milque, and I've got a proper eye-mouth name of Collin, although I'm only related to the plumbers. shout out for the plumbers. I am a celebrant. Yep. And I also work for the NHS. I take people's blood, which I enjoy.
Oh, no. I absolutely...
No, sorry.
I'm sorry. Well, I'm going to go off my first tangent. And that is that I had my bloods taken just before Christmas. And I had no idea I was so scared of having my blood. I had to put my head into the pillow again. I thought I'd move past that for the age of 16.
No. It's always there, and when somebody's coming at you with a needle going to withdraw blood, it's a perfectly normal reaction. It's well, the people that come in and are very relaxed
Blasé
and are here
about
heavy. I'm like, what is wrong with you?
They're your serial killers.
Yeah. Well, not quite. No. Okay, that was just Andrew's opinion.
So this is a fun start. Obviously, me and you've had a little talk, obviously, beforehand about the thing, and you've got quite a clear message that you want to get across to our listeners today. And can you just tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So I've suffered from depression. I got diagnosed at 15. Mm-hmm. They think it was maybe about 13. My dad passed away from cancer. So this was in the early 90s, where it was very much hush-hush. There was a big stigma around it. It was kind of like, oh, there's got to be something wrong with you. It was at a time where having something like depression made you feel quite isolated. Yeah. You felt quite alone. You felt that you needed to hide it and sort of put on a front of some sort. So to get to see how mental health is dealt with nowadays, even in my son Kieran's time, I was going to try my best not to speak about him. He will be swearing at me. It was... even how his generation deal with mental health now is so much more healthier than back in my time. And I am so proud of the work that you're doing and how open and honest you're being about your mental health, because it stops that loneliness.
It does.
It stops that isolation that we put ourselves into. But my main thing I want to do today is give hope.
Yeah.
You know, give hope to people out there who have depression, who have mental health issues, that there is a life. There's a life that you can live with it.
Yeah.
When I first got diagnosed, I had a lot of help. The NHS was much better funded. The doctors were able to signpost you to people. So I did have a lot of clinical help. I had a lot of support. I got put on antidepressants at that age. I've been on antidepressants my whole life, as far as I can remember. I mean, 15 years is nothing. Yeah. And, get put on drugs then and sort of...
powerful drugs.
Yeah. And to sort of think, is this my life? Is this how I'm going to live? Yeah. So I did have quite a turbulent childhood as well. I didn't have any consistency. I was brought up by many different people, not all of them in a positive way. I didn't really have much of a consistent figure in my life. The one consistent figure I did have, which is my mum, Susan, which a lot of your listeners will know. She's now got her little scooter she goes about in. But she suffered from mental health. She suffered from really bad anxiety. She was actually agoraphobic.
Really?
So most of my childhood was her in the house, and her leaving the house was a big, massive event. So mental health has always been part of my life. It's been part of my family. So the fact I can be so open and honest about it now, to me, is still brand new.
Yes.
So I'm still like, what do you mean I can speak about this? But so I grew up knowing that there was, but at them days it wasn't even seen as mental health. It was just there was something mentally wrong with you. I mean, the fact now that we can call it health, and it's something that you can work on, and something that you can improve. So from sort of 15, getting help, getting put on antidepressants, sort of going through school, I had some amazing friends at school. I really did. And a lot of them looked after me, because I spent most of my high school being suicidal and trying to top myself here, there, right, and having just a really tough time. And I think as well, some of my school friends, it sort of took their toll on them as well, because there was nothing for them to go to.
Yeah, that's it. The isolation, as you say.
Yeah, and even though they wanted to protect me and make me better and stuff, they didn't know what to do. And they were kids themselves, but we had the dry dock back then.
Yeah, of course. I gotta remember that. Was it Fran? Yeah, God, I'm good.
Fran and Hazel. Yeah. And I think Stephen, I can't remember Stephen's last name. He's going to be straight on Facebook going, how dare you forget my last name? We had the dry docks, so we did have a place of safety. And I remember one of my friends, I think it was Samantha and Angela, actually phoned Childline because they were worried about me.
Wow, okay.
And the fact nowadays that kids can go onto their phone is a good thing, but it's also a bad thing. But, there is help. There is help so much more now. And then as I got into sort of my late teens, I kind of went into this denial. I don't need these antidepressants. I'm cured. I'm fine. Look at me. I'm in bedrocks. I think we should get a plug for all these places. I'm saying we should get money.
If I get sponsors, I'm done the more at work.
So I was like on a high, because my life was good and I was good, and I was like, that's it, gone. That's it. It's gone. Depression is gone. I am young and I'm going to be so much better, and the drugs are gone. I don't need to look back. In amongst all that as well, I was dyslexic, but I didn't know.
Right, okay.
And I think there was so many things fighting against me, not having quite, losing my dad, being dyslexic, not being able to do well at school. But I loved being at work. And being at work wasn't the same as being at school. I didn't have the pressures or the stress of exams, and I could be at work. And I loved speaking to people. I loved helping people. We'd get husbands in, try to buy presents for their wives into a clothes shop, and I'd be like, here, I'll find something. I loved being at work. So I was good. I was doing really, really good. And then as life goes on and stuff, and I just thought, that's it, depression's no longer in my life. I can carry on, I can live. And then I became a young mum, and hormones and having a baby and dealing with that, everything just kind of went to pot. I really struggled. So it was kind of back on the drugs. But I started looking at them differently. Were they drugs, or were they something that helped me, that helped me balance out my chemicals in my brain to make me live a good life, be a better mum, and be a better friend? They weren't a hindrance anymore. They were something that was going to help me. And like a diabetic takes insulin, like many other people have to take iron tablets and sort of many things. It was basically just a pill that I needed. And it was something I was much more accepting of. So as a young mum, my son's dad, he took his life when my son was 3. At the age of 26, he took his own life, and it was awful. It was absolute tragic. There has been a few suicides in my family. My uncle David took his life. when I was pregnant with Kieran. So when Lee did it, and he knew the pain that David had caused, I was like, how could you do that?
Yeah.
Neither one of us were mentally stable. We had been through a lot, and we had a very passionate relationship.
Yeah.
It was really passionate. Passionate in the good side and passionate in the bad side. And to this day, I miss him dearly.
He is a big loss. He's a big loss, and it's affected his family in many different ways. So after I lost Kieran's dad, Lee, I ended up in Huntlyburn for a little while because I made it up to the funeral and everything. It was the day after. It was getting back to normality. It was having to accept that life was going to go on without him.
Yeah.
It was just like a massive blow. So my cousin Kelly took me to the doctor, and the doctor very kindly told me I needed to go to hospital. So I thought I was just going for a little break until I tried to leave, and they were like, no, you can't leave.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I was actually sectioned.
Sectioned, yes. Okay.
So that was like a massive blow. And I really thought that was the end of my life.
Yeah.
I thought, this is me now. I'm going to be in the depth of depression. I'm never going to be able to have a life. I'm just going to admit defeat and give in.
Yeah.
Give in. Just stop fighting. Just give in and settle in this misery that was so determined to drag me down.
Yeah.
And being in Huntlyburn, which is like a hospital that specialises in that mental health thing, that in itself was a really, really humbling experience, because there was many people there that were attempted suicide and failed. Thank goodness. There was people there who had drug problems, because I looked like such a mess, and this is quite a funny story. Because I looked like such a mess, this gentleman that was there for drugs came up to me with a spoon in his hand, and most folk will know what they use a spoon for. And he sort of tapped me, and he was like, are you coming? And I was like, I don't do drugs. I don't. And he was like, what you been like that for? And I was like, is that how much of a mess I look like? How bad was that?
I know.
And just at that moment, my friend's brother, who worked with drug rehabilitation, just so happened to walk in, and he went, oh, hiya, Milky. So the gentleman looked at me and he was like, what are you saying that you don't do it? If you know him, you must. And I was like, I promise you, I don't. But I'm glad it was there, and I am so glad it kept me safe, and it was the right place for me to be at that time.
Yep.
It was scary, but it was the right place. But I had to come out, and I had to get on with life, and I had my son, and I needed to do anything, and I am so grateful for what was the family centre at the time, for the social workers that got involved and gave me all the support, for the government for giving me the benefits to allow me the time to heal. Because it was a really rough few years. Yeah. And I had settled into it, and I had accepted that I would always struggle with life. Nothing was ever going to come easy. I needed to stop working. I had to just focus on myself. I was never going to be good enough to be anything. And when you're in that situation, it's like misery loves company. And you draw people into your lives who are also on that level.
You do. The universe brings us together.
Yeah. But not always in a good way. Like me and you meeting today is in a good way.
Yes.
A positive.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Sorry, I'm looking on the other side. Yeah.
That. So because you think so little of yourself.
Yep.
You surround yourself by quite negative, manipulative people. And it's almost like you let off a homing beacon. Yeah. And they kind of see you, and some of them are like come with really good intentions, and they suffer similar things and they want to help. And not all people in my life at that time were bad. Definitely not bad. But I wanted to drink. I wanted to not care. I wanted to take the pain away. And that you kind of get surrounded by people that feed that. Yeah. And I was very easily taken advantage of because you're low. Yeah. And you don't have much self-worth. And I'm sure there's people out there
who feel like that right now.
Yeah, 100% there will be, yeah.
And if you take the time and look around you, sometimes you've got people that feed into it and contribute to it. And it's not out of malice, but some people like keeping you down as well.
Yeah.
And I had to see that I was fueling my own misery and making life harder for myself. That took years.
Yeah.
That took a really long time. And as I got better, I started my own business. I had the beauty spot down in the street. I got married. Raymond was really good for Kieran. I started to sort of piece my life together. My friends started changing. I started to do more positive things. I was going to college. I found out I was dyslexic, which was like a home and beacon. I just did nothing but study and learn because I just needed to do it differently. My life started to get a lot better. And since then, it's gone from strength to strength. I've never hid the fact that my marriage wasn't necessarily a good one because I was still dealing with depression and stuff. But my husband at the time had to put up with a lot. There would be days where we'd wake up and he would take one look at me and he'd be like, oh, right, so today's a no-go. And I would spend the whole day in bed. There was that up and down constantly. And I used to ride the highs. When you're feeling good and the world seems a bit brighter and you feel like you can do so much, you really ride it. And then when you bottom out, it feels like a thud. It feels like a kick to the guts because you're like, but I was fine yesterday.
Where did it go? Where did it go? I was caught a little sparkle in my belly. It's like, I got a spring in my step today.
Exactly.
Now I don't have it. It's horrible.
It's like, how could I be fine one minute and not the next? I didn't change anything. I didn't do anything. Everything was fine the same. I thought I could take on the world yesterday. And it was just, we had to ride a lot of the ups and downs. And his patience, I do have to give him. He did have a lot of patience. Our marriage didn't work. But he was so patient and he was so good with Kieran. Because Kieran had to deal with me having these up and downs as a little kid at 5-6 year old on his own. And there would be days where Mum just went on the couch and I was at a show and tell at school. I don't know if I forgot to give him something or whatever, but he decided to tell his whole class that some days his mum doesn't get out of bed. I was like, oh my goodness. And I was lucky because around that time is where the whole stigma started lifting around mental health, and I was able to get help and support. So I've got what I call an ugly story. I've got an ugly story, and I have been to the depths and I've read the highs, and now I've worked really hard to get where I am. And they're right. Exercising does help. Eating right does help. Surrounding yourself with good people does help. All of that helps, but you can't do it. You can't do it until you're ready. And I wasn't ready for a long time, and I made loads of mistakes. Like when I started my own business, and I think I've had loads of jobs because of my mental health, because I've always had that work ethic, and I've always wanted to work and get my own money and stuff, so I always worked, and I would work for so long and then my mental health would take over, and every time it would fall apart, and it was almost like a failure, and it was like, right, come on. And then I'd always have this little voice echoing in my head that you're a failure. And it was fighting that voice and trying to prove that voice wrong is hard.
That's it.
But it can be done.
It can be done.
It can really can be done.
That's the sentiment that I always try and lead with, is that it is to look at in the bigger picture. It can look impossibly hard, as impossible sometimes, but it can be done.
It really can be done. Right now, you might not feel like it can. If you're out there and you're feeling anything similar to what I was feeling, you're thinking, how am I supposed to fight this? I feel alone. You're not, and you can. And it might not be today. It might not be as quick as tomorrow, but one day you are going to be able to silence that voice and prove it that you can live with depression without it throwing this big heavy blanket that you've got to carry about with you. I mean, for years, the blanket of depression I carried weighed a ton, and my blanket's still there. And it's just gotten a bit lighter.
That's it.
And some days it's manageable and it's really, really light, and other days it's not.
Yeah.
And I'm never ever going to be able to be consistent and have good days and stuff like that. So I think it's why I've had loads of jobs. But becoming a celebrant was like somebody had relit the spark in my belly, like you were saying.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I get to go out there and I get to help people celebrate life. And you've got to celebrate the little wins. You've got to celebrate what you can.
Yeah.
The other thing that we were speaking about earlier as well, that I went off on a tangent and forgot, was anxiety. So we were discussing the difference between depression and anxiety.
Yes.
And I said, quite boldly, I would rather have depression any day of the week.
Yeah.
Because basically, depression is where you do not care. You care about nothing.
Yeah.
You literally want the ground to open you up and swallow you and just give you a break.
Yeah.
Anxiety is when you care about everything.
That's so true.
Becomes so, suddenly things you didn't care about become the end of the world.
Yeah.
And I remember getting back to normality and trying to take Kieran at school one day, and I've never ever had anxiety before. I knew my mum had suffered from it, and I always thought it was her weird way of describing depression. But she was kept saying, my mum was always like, I'm not depressed. Milky, I'm not depressed. And I was like, of course you are, you've got mental health issues. But she had anxiety.
Yeah.
She had agoraphobia. So I would take Kieran to school, I got to the front door, I couldn't open the door.
Yeah.
And I was like, open the door. Nope.
Yeah.
I could not pull the handle down on that door. I don't know what I thought was behind it. I don't know what I thought was going to happen, but I could not. And Kieran's looking at me because he's just little at this time, and I'm looking at him, and I was like, guess what? Day off school. Woohoo, let's go watch cartoons. Because I could not open the door.
Yeah.
And it was still brand new to me.
Yeah.
And I was like, how am I going to explain this? And the school eventually were like, where is your son? And I was like, well, I couldn't open the front door. And they were like, oh, is your door broken? And I was like, no, I just couldn't open it.
That's, yeah.
Yeah, it just wouldn't
Just
open.
wouldn't go.
Yeah. And I was like, how do you not understand I couldn't open the door? And it was, I couldn't comprehend it, so I didn't know how other people were going to comprehend it.
Yeah, exactly.
In the meantime, my gorgeous mother is sitting there going, haha, now you know who I was talking about. That is anxiety.
That is horrible karma.
And at this point, I turned round and I was like, no, I don't know how this woman put up with that for all them years. It is awful.
It's pretty rotten. I won't lie. It's weird. You're saying the first time you experienced that. The very, very, very first time I experienced it was sat up at the golf club. I went up on a Friday night and I needed to pee. And I was sat in a chair and I went to go and use my legs and my back and my bum as anybody does. And I went to, and I can't move. And I actually put my hands on the side of the chair to push myself off.
Frozen.
I can't move. And then that's when the panic sets in of, is my, like, what the? And then eventually it was just like, you kind of get that release of, right, go. And then the anxiety set in, but I didn't know it was anxiety at the time. I thought it was having a heart attack.
Yeah. The physical effect of anxiety is torture.
It's horrible, yeah.
My car broke down once on Church Street and I passed out.
Wow,
with anxiety.
Really?
I
Wow.
blacked out. Because my car was like my little safety zone because I had a child and I had to do motherly things. And I went to the park or something, but I had to have my car. I had to run to my car. I had to have my car. And it ran out of fuel. Young mum, on her own, not have a clue. And obviously there was cars behind me. Well, next thing I knew, somebody was knocking on the window and I was like, come to. My body had went into such a panic and it shut down.
Just stop.
Stop.
Yeah.
And it's your body's way of protecting you.
But that's it, fight or flight.
Or freeze.
Or freeze.
Or
I always forget about the third one now. See, that's how old school mental health goes now.
Yeah, but it is. Freeze is, oh God, I don't even know how to explain freeze. Your body knows what it's doing.
Yeah.
It's there trying to protect you. But, you know, I would rather flight.
Yeah.
Anything, just let me run, let me be safe.
It's one of the topic subjects, however you like to call it, that I find is the most difficult for other people to comprehend is the fact that it's not a case of just do it and you'll be able to do it. Is your body saying, no fucking chance here, pal. You're staying put. You don't have the power over it. And it's
grin and bear it.
Yeah.
Buckle up. Come on, just pull yourself together. do you not think I have tried that?
That is the very first thing that I've said to myself.
Yeah.
Give yourself a shake.
Yeah.
I've fucking done it 10 times and I still can't get off my chair.
Do you not think that was the first thing I did? Do you think I wanted to be frozen in this spot?
Exactly.
But having depression I'd had it since I was 15. I was nearly 25. I was an old hand at this. To have brand new anxiety on top of that. I was like, how can I go from not caring to caring about everything, to not being able to open a front door, to be scared of my own shadow, to be like so annoyed and frustrated because my body, just like yours, was constantly letting me down.
Yeah.
It would break out in sweat. It would freeze. It would not take me to safety where I wanted to go. And what was I scared of?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. I know that us who suffer from anxiety, if an apocalypse ever comes, we're going to be fine. Because that thing that we're scared of, that imaginary head mincing thing that we are petrified of, is finally going to happen.
Yeah.
So we're going to be the dream team.
That's it. It's fine. Yeah, let it come.
Yeah, because we're going to be like, welcome to our world.
Every day.
And as I was saying to you before, it is still definitely depression all the way. As you were saying,
Slightly different for me.
have I changed your mind there, Andrew?
Maybe a little bit, yeah. Because, when I think about it now, anxiety stopped me from doing a lot of things in my life. Depression just made me not, as you say, I didn't really care about them. So if I didn't do them, I didn't care that I didn't do them because I felt like shit anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually very true. You might have actually spun my head around a little bit with that one. Because in fact, no, that you're actually very true, actually. Because if I think about Glasgow in 2 weeks, I'm not worried about that I'm going to feel shit. I'm already nervous about the fact that I know I'm probably going to get anxiety. Answered your question.
Yeah. You're allowed, but when you're in the thick of depression, as many people out there might be that are listening.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah. This isn't a joke,
No.
and it isn't funny, and we are laughing about it because it's our coping mechanism.
Yeah.
But when you're in the thick of depression, it's hell. It's horrible.
Yeah.
It's not. That's not even the correct use of word. Especially me being a celebrant, I should not be using hell and God because I'm the in between. But it's torture, and it's not a laughing matter. But when you get to the other side, or you have a good day in that, the only way to cope is by laughing at it.
That's what I always say. You kind of have to desensitize it a little bit. That it's
Normalise
100%.
it.
Yeah, it normalize it 100%. It's like it's horrible. It's more powerful than what people would ever really kind of comprehend in their lives if you're lucky enough to not suffer from poor mental health. But like I always say, it kind of gives you a little bit of a different view of life, that you see things slightly a little bit more beautiful at times. Like we were going on before, when you're like, when you get that spring in your step, like I don't like saying it as in like normal people. It's cause
That's
like,
not what you mean.
But like, you don't know how happy I can feel. Like, you don't know how shit I feel, but you also don't know how happy I can feel at times, which is an amazing feeling.
I call them rainbows and cupcakes.
Yes.
So if you were in my head, there would be a little bit of a storm and a dark cloud going on, and then a little bit of sunshine and a bit of nice clear meadow. As people who have been lucky enough to have resilience and a strong mental health, they have rainbows and cupcakes, and they get to live a life that we, or many of us, can only dream of. But I do that thing where I sort of cock my head a little bit to the side, and I'm just like, gosh, I hope nothing hurts you. I hope you remain in that way.
But I think one of the biggest lessons that depression and anxiety has told me is never judge.
Yes.
Because you just do not know. Like, as you say, the stigmas are there. And speaking to Kev the other night, something that he mentioned that really kind of brought home true for me, when he was saying, obviously the confidentiality has to be so strong about this man club, because we have guys there that have just told their wives they've just went out with a dog, or they went down for a pint and they've actually went. I mean, that how mental is that? They're telling their wives they're away for a pint, but they're actually away for mental health.
And they can't be honest with the person that
loves
them.
And that really hit home with me, because it's like, as we say, it's quite good for me and you. We can sit here and we can have a little bit of banter about it, and while we respect one another's stories wholeheartedly, we can desensitize it. But there is still people out there that are just,
my generation, definitely. And anybody like beyond prior to my generation, this generation, my son's generation, and the generation coming up have no idea how gifted they are. I mean, the stigma still carries with my generation. I would never wear a badge saying I suffer from all this mental health, and this is quite a big thing for me to do. And if you don't know me and you see me on the outside and you see how bubbly I am and I stand up and I do funerals and weddings and stuff like that, and you're like, she can't suffer from depression.
Yeah.
They don't know my bad days. They don't know the battles and stuff that I do, and the grin and bearing it and the front that I can put on. And you know how sometimes I'll go to the supermarket with my jammy bottoms on and I've had to force myself out of that door. And they're like, oh, you seem in a right bad mood. And you're like, no, I'm fine.
Yeah.
But inside your head, you are screaming.
Yeah.
And you can never, ever judge. If I see somebody and I see them avoiding me, or if I see somebody and they've got their head down and that, I just think they're having a bad day.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's nothing more than that, but sometimes it is.
Yeah.
So it's okay to go up to them and go, are you all right? But if they say, yeah, I'm fine, then leave them.
Yeah.
Because not everybody wants to speak about it.
That's the thing. We have to be really, 100% respect each other's values of our own mental health.
Yeah.
Because you hit the nail on the head there. Some people just aren't willing, or not really willing, just don't want to.
Yeah. I think it is heartbreaking, though, if you can't tell a loved one what you're
going
through.
Yeah, that's what I was just like, wow. Because it's the older generation that will still play a massive, massive part.
I'm very open with Andrew, my partner now. Yeah. And I know what you're like with Catherine and how, and to not have an understanding partner at home I can't even imagine it.
It's unfathomable. Like I said, we were speaking about before, obviously my little kind of story, but I won't speak about that today. The support that Sass had, even just by not being there, just constantly though, by being there and just knowing that there was that person to come talk to offload to when I needed to, it is your lifesaver, isn't it?
Yeah. And some days you just need to come home and get a cuddle.
That's the one.
Because you've put a front on all day and you've gotten through it and you've done amazing. Yeah. But you just want to go home, shut that door and feel safe and open and honest and get a cuddle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
Something that I just wanted to ask you, obviously what we were speaking about before we went into recording, was obviously your celebrants.
Yeah.
And I really like the way you're describing that, from how you like giving people the option to say goodbye and that. Could you talk a little bit about that? Because obviously that's a massive passion for you.
I could talk a lot about it.
You could talk a lot about it right now if you like that.
This might have to go in another episode.
Let's go.
So, being a celebrant for me, so religion was somewhere I wanted to fit into. I wanted to imagine, and I'm not joking, this could totally be another episode, but imagine believing so much that there is a deity there who has a purpose for you.
Yeah.
Who is giving you this anxiety and this depression and stuff for a purpose, and is going to look after you and is going to reward you. And if you just pray and go to church, you're going to be looked after. You're going to be comforted. Who would not want that? Yeah.
Yeah, when you describe it like that, I'm just like, why?
Who would want that?
Yeah, it's so true.
That is what a church does.
Yeah.
It gets lots of bad publicity. Can't even say that word. It gets a lot of bad rep.
Yep.
And you think of it as old people that are going there, or and it doesn't suit everybody. And I was so envious of people that had religion.
Yeah.
If you full-heartedly believe in that, the comfort it must give
you would be amazing. Yeah.
But what if you kind of want to, but you can't? And what if you kind of do, but not all of it?
Yeah.
And what if you believe that there is an afterlife, but you don't know what it is?
Yeah.
And who's to say that Buddhism's right, that Islam is right, that the Quran's right, that the Bible's right? We don't know.
Yeah.
There could be some truth to it.
Yeah.
It could be totally fabricated. We will never, ever know.
Yeah.
And I'm open to that. I'm open to the possibilities of there being more.
Yeah.
If I had the opportunity to go through life all over again, and I'm much like, would I want it? I don't know. I'm kind of hoping there is going to be a rest at the end. If I have to go somewhere else and get reincarnated, I will not be happy.
I just want to come back as a tree.
Yeah. Or even a well-loved dog or a cat.
That's the thing. Yeah.
Or, I don't know, somebody's pet lizard or something.
Something nice.
Yeah.
Nice Christy number.
But I want to be open to the possibility that there's not. And if that's how you feel, and you can't have a church funeral, but you also can't have a humanist funeral, because you're not denying that there's a something.
Yeah.
And I thought, where do I belong? I don't belong in either party. I don't belong with the church because I kind of agree with them, but then I don't belong with the humanist because I'm not anti-religious.
Yeah.
So how can you give somebody both
Yeah.
without, and then celebrant?
Incredible.
So a
yeah.
celebrant is especially an agnostic celebrant.
That's what I was going to say. You're agnostic, I take it. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm open to it.
Yeah. So
There
exactly the
being
same as me.
anything. And if you feel that your loved one's going to go to heaven, but you don't want to have them at a church, and you need a prayer said or you need a hymn done in that, I will give it to you respectfully. And it will always be respectfully because I'm not there to tread on anybody's toes. If anybody knows Rue, who again would be a fabulous guest for you.
Okay, I
Rue
remember that.
is the main man from
Okay.
the EU church. And I have been to Rue's services, and Rue has done some amazing funerals. One in particular which has stuck with me, and the way that Rue delivered it was amazing. So I am not there to step on his toes. I'm not there to take anything away. I'm there to work with.
Yeah.
And I'm there to allow the people that maybe don't feel they belong in a church to have that. In the same breath, I'm there for somebody that wants no religion at all and maybe wants some paganism or wants an Indian blessing, or, you know, I'm there to let you say goodbye how you want to say it.
Yeah.
As I said, I lost my dad at 13 and we had the most bizarre funeral for him ever. There was lots of reasons that went into it, but and I might be remembering some of this wrong, because please forgive me. I'm
No,
13,
that's absolutely fine, yeah.
I'm sure members of my family might take to Facebook and correct me. But it was done at home because he wasn't a churchgoer. My dad was a big man, and he was an even bigger presence of life.
Yeah.
And he got cancer, and it was in the 90s when it was
Just
the C word.
yes, aye.
So, what kind of funeral do you throw? So I think we got Jim Barry. I think, and I'm not 100% sure. We just got somebody. It might not have been him because I think he did my granddad's. We got somebody to come and say a few hollow words in the house, and then everybody traipsed down to the graveyard, and he went, and I was like, what?
Really?
Like this
yeah.
big, massive man who was bigger than life. That's it.
Yeah.
That's his goodbye. It felt so wrong. And at 13, I felt that.
Wow. Yeah, that's heavy.
Yeah. And so as life went on, and I kept going to these funerals, and I felt like they were so isolated. And then I lost another family member, and I saw a celebrant, and I went, that's it.
Yeah,
That's
the one.
That's it. We celebrated his life. We had a little bit of hymns, and we had a prayer, but we celebrated his life. We told his story. And I was like, my dad deserved to have his story told. If my dad could have had his funeral, it would have involved a lot of beer,
Yeah.
a couple of cigars,
Yeah.
and it would have involved a lot of music. And he had none of that.
Yeah, that's
And the
that's
fact that
such
I
a
can,
shame.
I'm there to give you that.
Yeah.
To say goodbye how you want to say goodbye, because not being able to say goodbye properly affects the grieving process.
100%.
And if
agree,
you're
mate.
already suffering from mental health and anxiety and depression, to have grief on top of that, it's just like, oh shit, bugger.
Yeah.
It's just not fair.
like I'm lucky that I've not had to deal with a lot of grief over the last kind of 5 to 10 years, but I can't even imagine if I did.
Yeah.
It just nope, I can't
And-
think of that.
Saying goodbye is the very, very start of it.
Yeah.
It's the afterwards. It's the living the next day and the week without them. And lots of families in Eyemouth, especially recently, have been affected
Yeah.
by that. And we're all going to be different, and we're all going to deal things in different ways, and some of us are more resilient than others. I've had my own mental health problems to deal with on top of that, which is why I think I fell apart when I lost my son's dad. But I kind of know what's going on behind them closed doors when you're sat by yourself at night and there's nobody else there, and you're facing the reality of life carrying on without that loved person.
Yeah.
And I'm always here to be an ear. I'll never understand what you're going through, but I'm willing to listen,
Yeah.
and I'm willing to give people that. And being a celebrant allows me to do that. I'll also get to do fun things,
Yep.
because we are not dragging this down to the bottom again. I get to do fun things like weddings and naming days, because life milestones and precious moments need to be captured in memories. And in order to do them amazing memories, like I'm sure your and Catherine's wedding was amazing, is by celebrating them, by gathering people together and celebrating them.
Yeah. So true. Yeah, that is quite uniquely perfect, because you say we started this episode with you wanting to give hope,
Yes.
and look at us now. We're smiling away.
Yeah.
We're smiling away, and it's such an amazing story.
If you had told me in my mid-20s, when I was on the throes of my worst depression and anxiety, that I would be where I am today, after I finished laughing in your face, I would have went and took you to Huntly Burn and be like, this person needs admitted. I couldn't see how depression would ever let me live a life, let me be successful. But I couldn't see where depression would even just cut me a break long enough that I could appreciate myself and that I could pat myself on the back and go, you did really well.
Yeah.
You know, you've got this, Milque. You can do this. And there was lots of people involved in it, and there was lots of people chucking help at me and supporting me. But at the end of the day, it had to be me.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, I now go to exercise classes and I eat better and I'm active, but I couldn't have done that in the throes of depression. So
yeah, I mean, that's so true. It's I was speaking, oddly, I was speaking to somebody at work about today, about the high rock stuff and the high rocks training. And just kind of aligning with what you said there, to relate to it, is the high rocks is intensely sore, but every time it gets sore, and as cliche as it likes, all I do is remember is the thought that when I was stuck in that bath last year, I was gagging, praying, just let me be able to have the strength to get outside and go for a run or go to the gym. And that's so important now, because like we said before, you once you've kind of really went through that horrible journey that you sometimes have to go in, to then see the beauty that life can provide is it's life changing.
yeah,
At times.
that is another guest we need to get on. So anybody that's listening who's a runner, because to me, why would you run? Unless something is chasing you,
There we
do
go.
not run.
Yeah.
Like the human body is not equipped for
No,
this.
well, that's
but
it. We're actually not. are we?
Lindsay will be screaming and going, yes, it is Milque. We're supposed to be running. But if there's a runner out there that wants to come and talk to you about the benefits of running, because I came across this one gentleman that said to me, because I'd sort of went into that, what's chasing you?
Yeah.
And he was very hurt by this and was just like,
really?
it's my space.
Yeah.
I go for a run and it empties my mind,
Yep.
and I find it so relaxing, and the serotonin that it gives and stuff. So if there's a runner out there that wants to come and prove me wrong, please do, because I'm all for advocating exercise, but just like, why would you run? Why would you torture yourself, Andrew?
The running for me, I definitely agree with what you're saying, that when I'm out, well, it's different for me. If I'm on a treadmill, I despise it.
No, that's worse.
Oh, that's terrible. You're
standing on the spot running.
Exactly. That is, if you're
So
doing that.
apologies now to all treadmill owners.
No, well, it's true. We talked about people liking blood lining them to serial killers. If you find somebody that's got a bruise because they came off a treadmill or whatnot, and you can to look out like. But no, running for me outside, it definitely, as long as I'm outside, as long as I've got good music in, as long as it's a good stimulus to get me running. 'Cause I won't go for a run unless I'm training for something. That's the only. I agree with you in that sense. Like, I need to be actively doing something to make me go on that run for me to actually kind of get that serotonin.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's Andrew. You just done for a run. You could have just went for a walk. You're going outside anyway.
Yeah. there was I can't even remember where I saw this. I'm gonna say it was TikTok, because TikTok's where I see everything. How much I would get done if I had not downloaded TikTok during lockdown would be amazing. I'm not looking at the hours, but saying, because of depression and because of anxiety and because of poor mental health as well, the whole planning, the whole keeping yourself clean, the whole looking after your house, the whole dishes are my downfall. And setting a goal is never, like, I just don't do it, because I've lived a life of failing and not reaching it.
Yeah.
But I have read this, like, heard this really amazing thing on TikTok. I'd love to say I read it and be very intellectual, but I'm not there. That how do you score? How do you achieve something if there's not a goal? So you're needing that thing to train for, because then that gives you something to score for.
Yeah, I'll give you a little 1 minute story that will definitely relate to that. Is a book that I've just read.
Oh, look at you with a book and me with a TikTok.
There we go. We are so
nobody
educated.
likes a
So
show off.
educated.
Andrew, showing off with your books.
The book is called The Subtle Art of How Not to Give a Fuck. It really is. It's really good. And there's a little extract from that I shared on Instagram maybe a month back. And It was a guitarist for a band. The band just got signed in the 1980s, and they decided to kick out their lead guitarist for no explanation whatsoever. So heartbroken, he took off back to California from New York, wondering, why the fuck did they just chucked out of this band? Went through all the hurt, and then he promised himself that no matter what he'd done in his life, he always had to be bigger than that band. That guy is called Dave Mustaine, who then made the band Megadeth.
Right.
And the band that he was trying to get bigger than was Metallica. If you've ever heard of Metallica.
In your face.
Yep. And unfortunately, Megadeth never got bigger than Metallica. So if you ask Dave Mustaine, it was a success, he'll tell you it's a failure.
Yeah.
So always be careful what you measure yourself against.
Exactly.
That's it. Never measure yourself against other people too much. Just always to yourself, because if they're outdoing you, you're never going to improve.
And a plug here for Catherine at Cult and Lindsay. Again, sponsorships welcome. So when I go to Cult, sorry, Andrew's lost it now. When I go to Cult, and I've got fibromyalgia on top of that, again, a totally different podcast. When I go to Cult and I am not doing burpees and I am not jumping about doing jumping jacks and that for various reasons, I'm still there.
Yeah.
I'm still moving. I'm going, I've got my own goal to reach. And as long as I'm not on the couch wallowing in my depression, then I'm doing something. Yeah. And this might be the numerous 80-year-olds that go there that are doing jumping jacks and amazing. And I'm still like out of breath doing a toe tap. I'm there. Yeah. I'm trying.
That's it. Because showing up 99%. Like, I totally agree with that. That if you show up and if you get yourself through that, in fact, I'll break it down in simple terms for the poor mental health ones. If you're strong enough to make it out your front door, well done. If you're then strong enough to make it into your car, double well done. If you drive to the place, get out your car door again, and even think about going to the front door, kudos. But if you get through that final front door and think, right, I'm in, and it doesn't matter what you do, you've already done what so many people don't feel that they can do.
And in Catherine's class, I don't feel singled out.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. I just do my own thing and go in my own zone. But they're so welcoming. They're not cliquey at all. They're so lovely. Catherine is lovely. She gives like alternative exercises. So if you can't keep up with them, it doesn't matter. As long as you're moving and as long as you're working, that's all. And then I'm getting that circulation and then going. I didn't make it much in January because I took quite a dip because I never do well at Christmas. Yeah. I don't know what it is. It is literally from my birthday, which is in November, right through till January. I'm a write-off.
Really?
Yes. I just plummet.
Like quite seasonal depression. Like, I'm not saying seasonal, but seasonal depression.
But it just starts, and I just go lower, and I refuse to see that there's a routine or there's a sequence with it. And every year I'm just like, I don't know why I feel so rubbish. Yeah. But like I struggled to get to the gym. I only went, I think, twice. Yeah. But like you said, I made it out the door. Yeah. I went to work. I just had to choose my limitations at that time and prioritize what my mental health would allow me to do. Yeah, it's so important that. Because, just reiterate that for anybody that's going through something similar is obviously, take it step by step, because there's a lot of people that will champion behind you, and that's really good, and the support that you can get behind that's is obviously massive. But take it slow, because that's a mistake I make constantly, is that you going onto a burpee, you jump that massive leap forward, you do it again and you're exhausted. And so definitely just a really strong point there that you raised is just to work within your limits. Yeah. And it's great to surpass them. It's great to maybe push the boat out every now and then, but don't burn yourself out. I think Lindsay covered that great. Yeah. When Lindsay was talking about small changes, even when I have to, working for the NHS, when I have to speak to people about lifestyle changes, I always say start small. Yeah. Have that little bit more protein, that little bit less carbs, and then you don't notice the change, and the change is more likely to stick. And it's like, if I'll say to them, they don't exercise much, let's just try 5 minutes and keep it to 5 minutes. Stop exercising when you want more, rather than going until you feel like you can't get up. Yeah. And then maybe you can do more the next day. Maybe you can go 7 minutes the next day, but start small. And Lindsay really, really, when I was listening to her speaking about small changes, I was like, woohoo! Yeah. Because it is all about small changes. Yeah, small wins. Small wins. Yeah. And, maybe you can't get out of bed today. What about if you try tomorrow? Yeah. Or, another episode. I'll keep that for another episode. I'm going to actually just make a side project, I think. Yeah. Yeah, just Milque. Andrew and Milque does the universe. Yeah. Yeah. So the other one that I was going to say was about self-harming and how you overcome that and stuff. But even like setting a goal for tomorrow, whether it's a negative or positive goal, can sometimes be helpful. But if you make it too big and unobtainable, if you're like, right, I'm going to go to the gym and I'm going to do burpees straight away, no.
Yeah.
Let's just
wind it back a minute.
Let's just maybe jog on the spot first to see how that goes. Then we can maybe throw ourselves on the ground for no reason at all, Catherine. Burpees and running, not advocated by Milque. Throw yourself on the ground and get straight back up again. Why? As you sit there in your Sparta jacket, because I don't want to just monopolise being a cult advocate. Sparta and Alan Bogle.
Yep.
Big shout out.
Yeah.
Been there as well. It just wasn't the fit for me because I'm not motivated enough. I need somebody like Catherine and Lindsay and Gillian shouting at me and counting for me. If I go at the gym myself,
counting's
I'm
massive.
Like, no.
I can never count. Like I can't tell you the last time I done a set of 12.
No. I started counting up to 5, and I was like, right, if I do 2 5s.
That's what I do.
Yeah.
I still lose count. You would think it was bulletproof. It really isn't.
Appealing to the wider audience, anybody that can teach us how to count,
Well,
please
let's say,
come on.
welcome to anxiety.
Yes, please come to and teach us how we can count past 5. That would be greatly appreciated. I dread having to count. It's like, oh, can you count that? No, I can't.
Yeah.
I can't get past it. Don't ask me to count, especially if they hand you over a big pile of things. I'm like, please don't.
Aye, yeah. Being overwhelmed.
Yeah.
It's just a horrible feeling.
Oh God, overwhelmed. Okay, that's another episode. Please
Yep.
stay tuned for overwhelmed and how to cope with the overwhelming. And I don't, honestly, with not being able to open that front door when Kieran was little as well, I don't know how a pile of dishes used to destroy my day.
It's incredible, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a pile of dishes.
Yeah.
But the thought of having to do them was so overwhelming and so overpowering, and the wanting to just put them in a big bin liner and smash them.
Yeah, because that was an easy fix.
Yeah.
It seems so much easier.
We'll just get paper plates.
Yeah.
It's looking back on it now, it's hilarious. At the time, it was soul destroying.
It's serious. At the time, that's what like the main message is. That is really serious, because that is. I mean, we're laughing about chucking the plates away. I can relate to that feeling because you come downstairs. I know you walk upstairs and you've left the dishes at night time and you got that pit in your stomach. So, oh God, I'm gonna have to walk downstairs in the morning and look at them dishes. And what happens?
I was literally about to say that.
I walk downstairs in the morning and look at them dishes and you go, oh,
dread.
fuck life.
The dread. That complete and utter dread. And it destroys your day.
Yeah, it really does.
A pile of dishes destroys your day. So if you're staring right now at a sink full of dishes, fuck them. Leave them.
Yeah.
Let the dishes just rot away. Don't let them control your life. Don't let them overwhelm you. They are dishes.
Yeah.
They will still be there in a week's time. Just leave them.
That's it. Or buy a dishwasher. Which I have but never use.
Yeah. I've got a dishwasher. It was to save my relationship with Andrew because of the whole dishes. Because
Oh, really?
even when you not you, Andrew, sorry,
No,
Andrew.
Yeah.
Even when I'm not going to say I've recovered from depression, because I don't mean I've recovered. I really do not mean I've recovered. I haven't. I live with it.
Yeah.
And
I
it lives
understand
with
what
me.
you're saying,
And
yeah.
some days it's bigger than me, and other days it's a tiny little bug on the floor.
Yeah.
You're still left with hang-ups. And dishes are mine, and it's stuck. And not being able to open the door some days is mine, and it's stuck. And that having to force myself out of bed and having to force that smile on. And sometimes I can be having the worst day ever. But if I help one person, if I make one person feel better, that's enough to make me think today was worth it.
Yeah. And that's amazing.
Yeah.
And I think that's just as we approach the hour mark of the podcast as well, that's pretty sentiment to what this entire episode has been about.
Yeah.
And
the spin-offs.
And the spin-offs. The many to be fair, yeah, I did say before we started recording that I'd do well to not go on tangents. I haven't went on tangents. You just went on tangents.
I'm gonna stop you there, Andrew. And I'm gonna say there was a little bit of enabling on the tangent side.
Potentially, it might have been coerced.
But I'm pretty long-limbed and go off on all wild tangents.
You've been the funnest guest ever.
Honestly, you can start speaking to me about the colour white, and by the time we finish, we're painting a rainbow.
Oh, but I could absolutely see how that could happen.
Yeah. And you've got to laugh about it.
That's it.
Sometimes you've got to cry, but you've got to laugh about it. Sorry for the swearing.
Yeah, well, we've had that's been our laugh, let's say.
And I'm so impressed I made it to almost an hour before I ended up swearing over dishes.
you've
dishes.
done so well.
Leave the dishes.
Is that what I was going to ask you? Could you give you just a message to any listener?
It sounds, I really, really hate saying this because it sounds so cliche and it's so worn out, but be kind to yourself.
Yeah.
You know, that you are the toughest, most horriblest judge. That voice in your head is the one that tears you apart. So be kind. Just ask it to shush for a minute.
Yeah.
Find who you are and just be kind. And if you need to spend the day in bed, spend it. There's always tomorrow.
Yeah, that's the one. Always choose tomorrow. Choose tomorrow. It's always there. I have to thank you immensely for your honesty.
No, I need to thank you
Nope.
for allowing me to do my first ever podcast.
Okay. I very much happy that I've given you that opportunity. But honestly, you came in, and when we spoke that you hope that you do an episode that people would relate to, is just another one of the, I always say, sat here dumbfounded. I'm just sat here blown away because I'm like, yeah, I know, and it brings those feelings back.
You can do it.
But the way that you've articulated with a little bit of a funny spin, I think just gives so much of your personality as well, and how far you've come as well.
Yeah.
Along
and I hope you people out there have made it past the first 15 minutes of my miserable, ugly life, because it was worth it.
This episode will definitely have the highest retention rate because people won't know where it's going.
Stay tuned.
Exactly. So,
and next week we speak about gosh knows what.
Well,
it'll be a surprise for us too.
I think I've got 39 hashtag episodes ready, and I've probably got around about 39 sponsors, I hope, coming off the back of this episode.
If you're
too.
surprised, we're surprised. Me and Andrew sat down for a cuppa. Whatever's going to happen happens. And anybody that was mentioned, you owe us money.
You really do.
Yeah.
You really do. Cashing in now, like
Bedrocks.
Massive one.
Yeah, Sparta. Cult.
Lindsay. Good point.
Yeah.
Good point.
Yeah. Who else did we mention? Everybody else we mentioned.
McDonald's?
No, I don't think we mentioned them yet, but McDonald's are great employers.
Are they?
Highly recommend a job in McDonald's. They pay for you to get further education. And if you stay there long enough, and this is a bonus, if you stay there long enough, you get private health insurance.
Seriously?
Wow. McDonald's are an amazing employer. FYI, I do not work for them.
No.
I work for the NHS. And nothing will be said about that because my employers are lovely. But no, McDonald's are really good employers, and they're great for young kids who've left school and feel they've got nowhere because they can still get educated and learn to cook.
That's incredible, actually, yeah. Did you know there's more Subway chains in the world than McDonald's?
Yeah, they don't do gluten-free, so I don't like Subway.
Oh, I love a Subway. I was really just taken back by that fact the other day. It was one of the quiz questions that I actually messed that up because I can't. I can't remember how to explain it.
And also, on a note, we need any runners out there that want to come and talk about the mental health benefits of running.
I've got my 2025 calendar booked now.
If anybody wants to talk about the purpose of a burpee, Catherine, that's over to you. Pointless.
So much more.
Pointless.
Exactly.
Throw yourself on the ground and get back up again straight away.
Well, the worst thing about the high rocks as I'm doing is I push that sled 50 meters.
You need to explain.
And then you stick a rope on it. And I pull it back where I've just pushed it from.
You need to explain to me what that is.
It's right. You start off.
We can't do this on the podcast.
Yeah,
would be
you're right. That's it. I called this at an hour. It's now an hour 4 minutes. So we've just went on. Tangents. I'm absolutely positive, guys, that you're going to have Milky on the podcast again.
Shall we change the name to Tangents? No, but I like Borderline.
The Borderline. It was actually Sass that came up with that name.
It actually works because I'm Border Ceremonies and you're Borderline. So
the universe brings us together.
Yeah.
That's the sentiment that it keeps on happening on these episodes. I'm telling you, that's going to be my niche.
And you see, this is what I was saying about being a celebrant and not knowing belong. If you believe in fate, then that doesn't automatically make you religious. But fate is as whimsical as religion is. Yeah. And I believe in fate, and I believe fate intervenes and stuff. And then my mum, who is very much anti-religious, says there's no such thing as fate.
Yeah. Open mind.
We're here.
Agnostic all the way.
Border Ceremonies, Borderline.
That's it.
Sponsored by
Mackie D's. Tremendous.
Subway.
I was going to do the right guard or Gillette. It's because I went and seen Rob Brydon at the weekend, and he's the one that done all the voiceovers back in the. Sorry, right.
Tangent.
Right, I'm gonna end this now. Milque, thank you so much once more for coming on
My
the show.
pleasure.
This has been so much fun. It
My
honestly
pleasure.
really has.
I will be back.
You're going to be back. Well, I think we'll see about getting you back in within a month or two, because this has been a really fun one personally for me to have a bit of a laugh about as well.
Yeah.
It's something that I don't really get the opportunity to do. So,
And thank you for sticking to the very end.
oh yeah. If you made it this far, you give me a message and I'll give you a free mug. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in again tonight to this episode. I'm sure you're going to thoroughly enjoy it. Again, Milque, thank you.
You're welcome.
And I'm sure we'll hear from you soon. So until the next time, guys, thanks again. And this has been the Borderline Podcast with Andrew Willix. Good night.